This is a relatively, I will say, new current research field, which we have in a way tackled at our school as well. But so, given that I come from the natural sciences, biomedical sciences, and I am also in charge of teaching subjects related to the environment and health, I will do my best to give you as much as possible information that is, I will say, scientifically supported, relevant and, in fact, I think is key to understanding this issue. I will not focus on exclusively demanding data or research, but I would like to pass on, during the project, such knowledge that we can all take home, maybe even to our families or, in any case, friends, and that we will all take away some key messages. So I have prepared some such basic information today. I have put together a few issues mainly so that we can all face the dimension or importance of this topic or issue, because we can say that it can be viewed from these two aspects. Maybe just one more comment that I find very important. As a school, we really recognized this project idea as extremely high quality and also necessary for the general public, including young people, and after all, this project reminds us all as consumers. It reminds us of all aspects of plastics or will warn us. Microplastics, because most of the time we are responsible for our own education, attitudes, and behavior. It seems to me that with this project we will all be able to gain quite a bit of knowledge in this area. And maybe right at the beginning. Plastics. The invention of plastics based on synthetic polymers in the early 20th century changed our lives forever. For the better. For the worse. Plastics is one of the most versatile materials humankind have ever made. It is a light material, it is in a way stable, solid, durable, flexible, it can be well manipulated and at the same time it is very cheap. And so it results in a virtually unlimited number of possible applications. We could also say that today we can no longer imagine life without plastics. It has changed our way of life and is practically present everywhere. Somewhere, in many places, we also see written that this period, the last 150 years, when this revolution of the plastic revolution took place, some also call this period Plasticine. If we look at all these advantages or solutions that plastics has offered us throughout history and even today, there is a lot of that. Today we will go over these general ones, and then we will stop in more detail during the planned webinars, namely, the use of plastics enables us to use various resources efficiently in our daily lives, at the same time it enables us to save energy, and in a way also enables us to protect the climate. If we only look at the automotive and aerospace industries, plastics offers us various advantages and solutions. After all, in a way, it also provides us with a safe but sustainable life in terms of transport, clothing, nutrition, technology, and also helps us save lives. But the plastics revolution, so to speak, has come at a price. However, the shortcomings of plastics may be becoming more and more noticeable, visible, as well as microplastics. Why did it also bring worries? Namely, according to the latest data, in the last 5 years, we have been producing more than 300 million tons of plastic annually for various applications. Data from 2019 show that at least half of the plastics produced globally is intended for disposable products, such as various plastic jars, straws, bags and so on. We may also be concerned that around 8 million tons of plastic end up in the oceans each year, and that this plastic accounts for up to 80% of all marine litter organ pollutants in marine ecosystems. Of course, this means a great burden for the aquatic environment and for all plant and animal species that live there. Pollution of the oceans with plastic is a global problem. Research has shown that, in fact, the entire world's oceans have this problem very well proven, and is also the most widespread problem of marine ecosystems. And with the fact that plastics is increasing so strongly or exponentially in terms of use and production, we also come to the issue of plastic waste. Plastics can also have a very long lifespan, including products, and consequently, directly or indirectly, the quality of our lives, the quality and safety of food, our health, tourism, climate and so on are endangered. However, we cannot ignore the fact that when other chemicals are involved in the production of plastic products, And especially in the past, when the beginnings of these synthetic polymers occurred, the production of plastic products also included substances that are known to act as hormone disruptors. They are also potential carcinogens, and of course these, in addition to plastics, they also remain in the environment. While the last thing I would like to point out is that smaller plastic particles, such as microplastics, also have a very high binding surface for other pollutants or toxins in the environment, which means that these toxins or contaminants get a very good possibility that they accumulate in the environment, and to convey the different ecosystems and the food chain. So at this point, of course, we can ask ourselves, is plastics a boon or a bane, whether it is a solution or a doom? And it seems to me that we will return to this issue many more times over the course of our webinars. However, before we get to microplastics, let's say a few more facts about plastics in general. As I said, in the middle of the 20th century, the development or global production of plastics has somehow jumped exponentially, and since then it has been estimated that we have produced more than 8 billion tons of plastics. And I found some very interesting parables that say that this is the amount that could cover the entire surface of Argentina, or that is the amount that is equal to 80 million blue whales, or billions of elephants. Maybe it's easier to imagine. And here we see on the left, that global plastic production reached as much as 370 million tons in 2019, but if we look at Europe and the trends, these latest data available and collected show that in 2019 this production compared to the year before, it may have decreased slightly. However, we must be aware that this is an industry where a huge number of jobs are being created in Europe. It is estimated that 1.5 million jobs. More than 55,000 different companies, mainly small and medium-sized ones, are involved in this industry, and this industry also brings a huge amount of cash flow to Europe itself. According to data known to the European Union, we see that the need for plastics in 2019 amounted to 51 million tons, of which the largest share is still spent on food packaging, various foods, including cosmetics, a fairly high share in construction, and then the automotive industry, that is, the development of technology in terms of electricity and electronics, some small households, agriculture and, of course, some diversity of other activities. Then I wanted to find out, what is the trend of using plastics over the years, and made a 10-year cut, and what did I basically figure out? In Europe, from 2009 to 2019, the needs for plastics have still increased by 12 and 13%, and if we project this on the world's population, which is also growing significantly, this growth may still be slightly lower than global population growth. Very interesting, and what can be seen here, is that this trend of reducing packaging in terms of food packaging, food, cosmetics, has partially decreased. However, the need for plastics increased in the automotive industry and technology, that is in electronics. If we look at Slovenia, where we are essentially small, we make a very small contribution to this European demand for plastics, less than 3 million tons a year. Plastics are made up of a wide variety of synthetic polymers. We will dedicate one whole webinar to this as well, but maybe to begin with. Here we can see, in this graph, that half of all the synthetic polymers we use in Europe today, are polypropylene and polyethylene. And these are synthetic polymers that are, of course, used for packaging, for toys, for various foils and so on. And these, of course, are the most common plastics among us. Here too, I made one such 10-year cross-section, and here, we see that these three polyolefins, polyethylenes and polypropylenes have increased the most in percentage over the 10-year period. I think it is very important that when we discuss the problem of microplastics in our project, we may be aware of the perception of these particles. When we talk about macroplastics, the macro dimension, of course, we are talking about the dimension of a few centimeters, decimeters. These are the sizes that are visible to us. But when we talk about the micro as such, the micro unit, we are talking about the order of magnitude 10 to -6. So 10 to million times less than the meter itself. To make it easier to imagine, I have prepared this micrometer scale with some molecules or molecular systems to make it easier to imagine this size. When we talk about the amount of 1 micro, in this case a micrometer, we talk about the size range of bacteria, a few micrometers also eukaryotic cells, the cell nucleus, but when we talk about units less than a micrometer, we talk about viruses and other cellular components or macromolecules. Now, where are we in this microplastic measuring tape? Microplastic is defined as a plastic particle with a diameter of less than 5 millimeters, so we are in a dark area. What I wanted to show you is that we can see microplastic particles with the naked eye. Especially when we talk about dimensions around 1 millimeter, while perhaps smaller ones we often don't even notice or see. And what is very important here for the perception of this issue, the perception of these particles. What did one study show? The big plastic particles we see. These great plastic products are easily visible and we are also easily aware of this issue. And studies have shown many negative social, economic and environmental aspects. While microplastics as such, is not always easily visible to the naked eye, which means that some potential negative effects are less obvious, although their release or presence in the environment may be more far-reaching or have long-term consequences. And also an impact on human health exists only in the form of someone in the suspected accumulation of microplastics environment. So, it seems right to me that we, the general public, are beginning to realize that even if we do not see the problem with the naked eye, the problem exists and can be quite big. Roughly speaking, microplastics is divided into primary and secondary. It is good to be aware of the differences between these two types of microplastics. Namely, we speak of primary microplastics when the plastics is less than 5 millimeters in size, produced for a primary purpose, that is as a raw material, whether they are pellets, flakes, fibers for the production of plastic products, and perhaps the most well-known microplastics are microspheres, microplastics in the form of microspheres, also called microbits, which are found in personal care products and cosmetics. While we are talking about secondary microplastics, when larger plastic products, due to various physico-chemical processes in the environment disintegrate, fragment, erode, degrade into microplastics. And I think I might give a couple more examples of research here. Namely, primary microplastics as such, come into the environment mainly through the use, from abrasions, through the use of some larger plastic materials. And they did a survey, the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources did a survey in 2017/2018, where it basically covered 7 different regions of the world and wanted to examine which type of microplastic is most present in the aquatic marine environment. They devised their own model and based on all these data and models, they found that somewhere between 15 and 30% of all the plastics found in the oceans could have originated from primary sources. And it is very interesting to note that most of this primary microplastics also come from land-based activities. Also across rivers into the seas, and mostly, you see this here on the left, are estimated to come from synthetic textile fibers and tires. This fact is very interesting and we will notice it many times. A huge amount of primary microplastics in the environment is encountered as a result of the use or maintenance of tires. Thus, traffic as such has a relatively large impact on the occurrence of microplastics in the environment. Then another study that I found interesting was the case of Germany, where maybe we go more into terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems. In Germany, however, more than 70 different sources of primary microplastics were identified in 2018, and it was estimated that the amount of microplastics released or left in the environment by a resident is around 2,500 grams, of which half is microplastics coming from car tires or tires as such. What do I want to show with these two examples? How different are the origins of plastics and microplastics, and how complex and extensive this problem can be. The European Union as such is aware of the problem and the scheme should remain an insight. What are the ways of microplastics pollution? What are the origins of the microplastics? And, all these circles or parts of the circles will be tackled in our webinars, and we will try to gain a little more in-depth knowledge in each of these segments. And, what exactly is the goal of all our project efforts? Of course, that you will, and that we will recognize the problem of the plastics and microplastics, that we will be able to assess the useful and appropriate value, usability of plastics, to reduce the use of plastics in a way that will lead to sustainable use of plastics as such because we cannot imagine our life without it, and in a way that we reduce waste. Our goal is also to make us aware of the way plastics is used. We think primarily about the thoughtful use of plastic in our daily lives, and that we will also understand why this is better for us and also for our environment. These are some of the challenges and general goals we want to achieve. However, our contents will be further divided into these 5 content sets, that is regarding the basics. We will say a little about chemistry to understand what is happening with plastics and microplastics, then we will touch on microplastics in the household, that is in the home environment, microplastics in the urban environment and also in the industry. We will also spend some time on waste and plastics recycling, and finally, on the future of plastics and microplastics in the environment, so, what effects it has on different ecosystems and organisms. I think I have concluded at this point, so, I would like to thank you for your attention. I hope I have convinced you that this is a topic that is right to talk about, and I hope that I have also convinced you that you will be attending our webinars in the future. We, the whole project team, are also available for any additional clarifications or questions. You can find my contact below. So thank you very much.